They don't, okay, we're live. Okay. I shouldn't talk. You know that it reminds me of that school board meeting the other day where they didn't think that they were in public and like they were just, I was about to talk shit. And so anyway, we're live. All of a sudden we're live. Okay, it's Nothing But Fantasy. You're here with me and Ray Flowers. I feel like it's a great time to have you. And I mean, I can introduce you as at Baseball Guy at Twitter, and everybody knows you, so I don't even really have to go there. It's Ray Flowers, Fantasy Guru, with me tonight, and we only have a few minutes of his time, so we're going to make every minute count. Okay, Ray, how are you doing, dude?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while since we talked. I know we missed our pickle shots and everything at Tout Wars, so that's, I guess, the best we do in 2021.
Is that the last we saw you at your tavern, in your local tavern? Is that the last time I saw you?
That was, and do you remember when that was? It was over a year ago.
It doesn't even matter. It's like the closest thing I have. We've been locked down for a year now, you know?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm lucky because last night was the FSGA draft. And not only that, but I'm even more lucky because Ray does a diary as the rounds go on, and he tells you each round what he's doing. And so I had already come up with questions for tonight because I feel like the first couple drafts of the year are like pretty important and people are interested in the picks and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I picked out some questions that I wanted to ask you, and then I saw your write-up and I was like, this is the best idea. Okay, I'm just rambling right now, but let me finish real quick.
Okay.
The best idea, because everybody wants you to write up about your draft, and you know it's a real pain in the ass. After the draft is over, it's really, you can't grasp on to exactly what was going on at the time. So here's Ray Flowers writing as the rounds go on, and I pretty much got questions. All my questions have been answered, but let's tell them.
Okay. What do you want to know?
I want to know, okay, it's a 14-team 5x5 roto league, and it's obviously a snake draft. You have $1,000 fab at the beginning of the season, and it's pretty standard stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because people do want. I've heard people say, "Hey, do a live stream while you're drafting," and I've thought about that, but usually there's so much going on that I do the diary version instead. And it's always interesting to me. People have problems making their picks in 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and I think to myself, I'm answering questions on Twitter, I'm writing articles, and I'm doing the drafting in 20 seconds. So I never quite understood why it takes some people so long. But yeah, I try to do it because I think that a lot of people, they think, Andrea, that there's like a perfect draft or there's a way you have to do it. And I try to show people that, look, this is what I'm thinking. I might go pitcher here. I might go outfielder, depending on who it is. To let people know that, while I have a plan, it's not one direction only. There's multiple directions that we can go in. So hopefully the readers enjoy, kind of seeing what I was thinking while I was going.
Okay, so let's start out with the first couple rounds. You scored offense big time, okay? You got Yelich, which I know you're a fan of Yelich before he was even cool, you said. Bryce Harper, Alex Bregman, and then at pick 4, you were like, should I go pitching right here? And that was really a pivotal moment in the draft when you picked Starling Marte. I agree with it wholeheartedly because you turned around and you got Lynn and Greinke. Those are your first 2 pitchers in round 5 and 6, 2 veteran pitchers. Talk to me about that long wait before you did. It was the 22nd and the 23rd pitcher off the board.
Yeah, and when you do drafts, you always have to, as I tell people, you have to play the draft. Okay, and I always say that a draft isn't a science, it's an art. Sometimes you'll do a draft and there'll be 10 pitchers taken in the first 3 rounds. Sometimes it'll be 13, sometimes it's 6. So it all depends on the draft. I have a pretty good handle on how most people in the FSGA draft go because a lot of us have been in the league for years now, and a long time. And most of the people go pitching early, and I think that gives me the ability to build some offense. And I think that in the 2021 season, with the uncertainty of who's using 6-man rotations, openers, what's workload's going to be like, that more than ever, waiting on pitching is not a bad idea, especially if you have a plan that you can enact that actually works. And my plan going into this was I really wanted to take, as I talked about in the diary, I really wanted to go hitting the first 4 picks. I was looking at, Brandon Woodruff and thinking, in that fourth round, excuse me, but I thought, no, let's stick to the initial plan. And the hope was, after hitting those four players, to get pitching I can count on. I think a lot of people think you have to have Max Scherzer, you have to have Shane Bieber, you've got to have a superstar at the top, and that can obviously work. But my plan was to get the hitters and then get stability. And as you noted, with Lynn and Greinke, they're both going to throw 180 innings. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to look at basically a strikeout an inning from the two guys. So it's not great, but it's right on what you need.
I just love your picks because to me, I'm really anti-risk in the first couple rounds. I've been loving Greinke for a while now. He used to be a very great deal in drafts. Now, but Greinke had an off season last year. Even that he actually had, as you point out in your article, that he had a great whip, the best in the last 4 years or something like that. Plus, you're right, he will eat innings in a world where there are not going to be a lot of them eating innings. Both of those guys are going to eat innings for you. Yeah,
and I think that's the plan. So that's the baseline, and that then enables me to wait a little bit and get a couple more hitters because I feel good about that. It enabled me to take Sixto Sanchez, who I think is excellent.
Right? I do. You kind of like you evened them out with the old guys and then the exciting young new shiny toy.
And then I drafted Kenley Jansen, who, as I noted, always gets 30 saves, even though everyone always doubts him. So I left the first 10 rounds with two stable starters, with a young starter with all that upside everyone loves, and then a closer. And so through 10 rounds, I thought the draft was perfect based upon my plan. Now, whether or not it works out, whether the players perform, but I love the start.
So at one point in the draft, you're like, the draft has officially gone, like, I don't know, like haywire or twisted around or something crazy. Right. It was funny. That was like about round 10. Where you had been sniped. I was going to ask you, the first guy that stepped out to me when I looked at your draft was Mitch Keller.
Okay.
Because Mitch Keller, I had to play Stratomatic last year for the first time because we had no fantasy baseball. Right. So I learned that. Mitch Keller was so intriguing because he was extremely cheap, right, for what you get. And his FIP was way better than his ERA. And I thought, this is too crazy. This guy has to be good. But I always hesitate with the guy on Pittsburgh. So tell me what you see in this guy.
I think that's on the list. If you look at his performance a couple of years ago, he was basically, and I wrote about this at Fantasy Guru last year, I think, that he was basically the unluckiest pitcher who ever lived. I mean, it was insanity, right?
Okay, but the Pittsburgh Pirates cannot score runs,
That's
so we
true.
have a problem there.
That's true. Absolutely true. So you've got a young pitcher who needs to take a step, because you can have all the talent in the world, but it has to come together. So he needs to take a step, and the Pirates are the Pirates. They might win 53 games this year. Okay, that's totally fair. I also look at, Jacob deGrom, and he's winning 10, 11 games sometimes. So I think sometimes people get a little ahead of themselves with the win column. I'm not expecting, Mitch Keller to win 15 games. That's not necessary. I think his ratios could be much better than they have been. I think he obviously has the ability to strike out a guy an inning. And, if he goes 180 innings this year and has 190 strikeouts and wins 11 games and his ERA is 4.1, I mean, it's not great, but where I drafted him, I think it works.
Okay, so Greinke is absolutely like the king of consistency. And Lance Lynn, too. I'm a big fan of Dallas Keuchel. He comes up in this conversation because he fits into like the Lance Lynn category. Well, first of all, they're on the same team, which I'm stoked about, right? They're better off there. And Keuchel got lucky last year, but I still am a believer in the spot that you have to get him. You were targeting Robbie Ray at one point. Tell me about why in the world you would put Robbie Ray in a beautiful
in a lineup that's working. It's so interesting because Ray last year, I was very reluctant last year because there was all the talk about the mechanical change that Ray made, and oh my gosh, he's striking out all his teammates and they can't hit the ball. He went out and
last year, right? I think Lenny was going on about this about Ray. Okay.
And then he bombed. It was awful. And the thing is that even when Robbie Ray is awful, he still piles up the strikeouts. Okay. So and this is another one of those things, I didn't think about Robbie Ray to myself and then say, I want to start this guy 31 times. Like that's not, it would be a mix and match. It would come down to the opponent. It would come down to how he looks. You get to a certain point in the draft where it's like, do you take a rookie? Do you take a youngster that's not been there? Do you take a veteran? And you start looking at, am I looking for strikeouts? Am I looking for an upside? Am I looking for stability? And so the Ray thing was like, look, he always misses bats, and there's a chance that the ERA is 3.9 and I can use him. And there's a chance the ERA is 5.2 and you wouldn't use him.
For sure. Okay, my favorite find of the year, and you mentioned him in this, but you didn't go through with it, was Carlos Martinez. The only reason you didn't was because he was already drafted.
Yep.
And the other day when I was getting ready for our show, I found a great tidbit that was Yadier Molina and Carlos Martinez playing winter ball and getting back his arm into starting material, which he was perfectly fine at when he was doing that job. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he got fired to the bullpen. They just needed him as a closer, right? Am I wrong about that?
No, I think they didn't have a choice kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. I love Yadier Molina going back to that team. I love Carlos Martinez's chances of getting right into the rotation. And he's picked, I mean, you barely missed him, but I was really proud that you brought him up because I think he's just the find of the year, dude, right now.
Yeah, I did the labor draft a week ago, and that I think was also his 14-team mixed league. And in that draft, I took Carlos Martinez in the 28th round, if I remember right. And so he was someone that I was thinking about at the same point, as you noted, and as the diary said, I was a couple picks away. And so he would have been on my team. But yeah, I agree with you that, there's arm talent there. There's been tremendous success there. There's a huge need for the Cardinals. They need that stability. They're going to let him start. He wants to start. We'll see how it goes.
But I just don't see how you could even consider giving the job to somebody if Carlos Martinez shows that he's ready to pitch. I mean, he's been with the team all these years. Yadi, I just loved the fact that Yadi was actually there playing with him in winter ball, and it was great. He had like a 1.85 ERA or something like that. I love him, but it's not going to last, people. We're telling everybody right now, and we'll continue to tell everybody because it's a good idea at this price. But at what point does he go too far up the draft board where you wouldn't draft Carlos Martinez?
Yeah,
that was round 27 that you said he just was taken. You brought him up and then he got drafted.
And like I said, I think a week earlier was the 28th round where I took him. So I think that's kind of where he's at right now. He goes out and he has a good start in spring. We get a little bit more press. All of a sudden, it's the 24th round.
Yeah.
By the end of March, maybe it's the 20th round.
Totally.
So he definitely could be one of these players that, he could see a probably 7-8 round increase, and I wouldn't be shocked by it.
I would rather take him over quite a few players. I think I would go, okay, you talked about Corbin a lot and Paxton. You ended up with Paxton. Paxton goes back to Seattle and has not had, he's just been a problem with health. But back to Seattle is always good for a pitcher, right?
Should be, yeah. And again, I think that the overarching thought for me is that I'm not expecting everyone to throw 200 innings this year, right? I don't think that's where we're going to be in 2021 baseball. So if Paxton throws 145 innings this year, it's not as damaging to your team as if everyone's throwing 178 innings instead of 198. He looked pretty good in the little showcase he had for teams. He's back in Seattle, as you noted, which should be a positive thing for him mentally as well as the ballpark. And I'm starting to embrace more risk with the pitching side of things as the years have gone on. I used to try to avoid it, but now I think it's kind of everywhere and you got to take a shot with it. And I think that at the top, when we talked about, you take Greinke, you take Lynn, you have that stable base, and you're able to take some risk.
Totally. I mean, you have to, there's no way to get around from taking risks. So you pick where you want to take your risk. And I guess I just have I haven't been more maneuvering around. I pretty much try to stay risk-free as much as possible. Like, I don't trust rookies and they're not that exciting to me. So I'd rather just have somebody that I can count on to be in the lineup every day. Like, I don't know, there's a few, but like you were saying about the innings, there is going to be a shortage of innings. We all talk about the 6-man, 7-man rotation. What Lenny likes to get crazy with the 7-man rotation.
Right.
But for me, I do think they're going to pitch less innings, except for the guys that have pitched a lot of innings already in their career that are reliable. Like Bauer's pretty reliable for a couple hundred innings. And you don't even believe me. The worst thing you got to worry about with Bauer is like, what's his ERA going to be? Is it going to be like 4.6 something. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what it's been. But you know he's going to go out there like a workhorse, and he's going to do his thing.
Mhm.
And you did not have to get this until round 5 and 6. Do you, going forward, you
Mhm.
think that was pretty comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
Because, you know, obviously you have to round out your rotation, which I think you did okay. I'm so glad you didn't get Drew Pomeranz, okay? You were trying to.
I was gonna handcuff relievers. I was gonna give it a shot.
But your relievers are fine. Kenley Jansen, you brought up earlier. You didn't draft Kenley Jansen until, where did you draft?
10th round, I believe it was.
10th round. Okay, I see this now. After Sixto, after JD Martinez, okay, you had to do JD Martinez, don't you think? You were like, I had to, because he hits 300.
Yeah, and it's really interesting with him because I just read Swing Kings. Is it Swing Kings? Yeah, Swing King by Diamond from the Wall Street Journal or whatever. Great book. It talks all about, you know, all these newfangled ideas of launch angle and how people outside of baseball, you know, kind of brought that in. And Justin Turner and, you know, JD Martinez kind of play central roles in the book. And it talks about almost the maniacal approach that JD Martinez has. Like, he sits there and watches video for 4 hours a day. Like, just, you know, that. And when you hear that someone is that involved with what they do, when you see the production on the field, I can't give someone a full mulligan for last year, right? It happened. But when you're JD Martinez and from 2017 to 2019, you hit like a, you know, primetime Mike Trout or Albert Pujols for 3 years with an OPS of over 1,000 for 3 years. You're in your early 30s coming into this season. I think that, you know, yeah, he's a excellent player to take given what the current cost is. And, you know, if he hits 285 with 30 home runs, I'm not shocked by that. If he's better than that, I'm probably not going to be shocked either.
So here's JD Martinez in the 7th round, right? Is that what I said? The 7th freaking round. Okay. Now, just a year or two ago, we were drafting this guy in the 1st round. And this guy has not ever had, well, he has had an average under 300, but it's been a long time. It's since 2015. Okay. So every single season, while everybody else in the league's batting average is going down the tube, like his is 300 plus. He batted 213 last year.
Right.
But this is where you like make a reasonable assumption with projections. Like, you have to put something into the last 4 years before COVID, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest issues. We don't know how much of an impact last year had. Was it the stuff away from the field? Was it the changes on the field? Were family members sick? Were the players just out of sorts because the season started late and they were playing in weird games? There was no fans. We don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to quantify it. I don't. And then you talk about 37% of the games being played, which is such a small sample size that, you know, we see this all the time. Alberto Mondesi is a perfect example. He was one of the 5 worst hitters in baseball in the first half. Second half, he was one of the 10 best. So, you know, maybe JD Martinez in the second half of the season last year would have hit 325, right? So, yeah, I think there's so many uncertainties with what happened and what didn't happen last year that when you have a player like Martinez who has a track record of dominance, you got to favor it.
Most projection systems like to really wait last season. And so you see that some of these hitters are getting really weighted, but I do think that we should give it somewhat of a pass. At least you have to give it 1/3 of the leverage because it was only 1/3 of a season. And you have guys that like AJ Pollock. I love AJ Pollock right now because he was healthy all the whole season, but is he ever going to hit 500 at bat, or, you know, is he going to get 500 at bats? Probably not. But AJ Pollock is, what do you think of him? Do you like where he's going?
I've always had a love-hate relationship with him because a lot of these expert leagues, as you know, they are weekly lineup leagues, right? So you set your lineup on Monday morning, and that's it. And like you said, Paul, he just doesn't play every day, whether it's a platoon thing or injury. So I've never been zoned in on him. I think that if you're in a league that you have the ability to change on a daily basis, he's much more intriguing because you know, he's not a superstar. But as you're noting, at the cost, he just has to be a good player to return value, and I think he can definitely do that.
For sure. Okay, we're talking to Ray Flowers, one of our favorites. We can talk about Fantasy Guru and the full year-long draft guide that you guys are selling right now. Okay, it's not just a draft guide. It lasts the whole year, and every week you get updates on waiver wires, right? And closer roles, like all the different job changes, injuries. You get to even chat with Ray Flowers. It's $39.99 for the entire season, and it's not just a draft guide that you use until the season starts, right? I mean, I have to admit, I don't have a subscription, and so there were quite a few articles that I saw that you wrote. Like you wrote about Mondes. Did you write about Mondesi?
Yeah.
Okay. And anyway, at one point in the draft, round 28, okay, this is one round to the last round. Starling Castro and Jonathan Scope are still sitting out there, and Brendan Rodgers. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I'm surprised to see that you chose him over Starling Castro and Jonathan Scope. Why did you? Isn't middle infield like the deepest thing you've ever seen? There's just like leftovers everywhere in this middle infield.
It's so wild too. Like Starling Castro is such a great example. He's going to end his career with like 2,700 hits. Like no one. He's like the Nick Markakis of infielders. But yeah, there's so much depth there. And in years past, I would have taken Starling Castro for sure, like no question. But I think I've tried to adapt to the game. I've tried to learn and change the way I'm thinking. And you said it great, 10 minutes ago when you said there's always a point to take a risk. We're in the 28th round, taking Starling Castro. You get value, but what does it do for you? It doesn't. Brendan Rodgers is in Colorado. He has an excellent pedigree. He's always been able to hit. Nolan Arenado's gone now, so there's an opening in the daily lineup. I don't think Ryan McMahon's any good. I've never bought him. I don't think there's anything there. I don't know if Garrett Hampson can play every day. I think Hampson can also see time in the outfield now that he and Desmond decided he's not playing, at least for now.
Oh, so Desmond's not playing now?
Yeah.
Wait, he did that last year, so now he's not doing it again.
He's doing it again?
Getting paid way too much money to be just opting out.
$15 million. Wouldn't it be nice to say no thanks? Yeah. I could see a scenario where Brendan Rodgers is starting on opening day for the Rockies. And, he's hitting 290 this year with 20 home runs. And if he's not, like you're saying, I mean, when you talk about being the 28th round of a 14-team league and guys like Starling Castro or Jonathan Scope are still sitting there, there'll be someone on waivers I can turn to if I need it.
The thing about Starling Castro is you already know what he's going to do. He's already, he's had his day in the sunshine, whatever it is, he's not getting better. And these other guys in Colorado, they haven't really even started yet. Hopefully they'll pull it together. Byron Buxton is going early. He's another one that he was healthy, so we're all excited about it. Byron Buxton, now he's going in like round 7 or something. Pick one right after pick 100. Are you a believer in? Did you ever believe? When did you? How's your timeline on Byron Buxton?
Yeah, I think Lenny and I could fight over him over the years. I've always been a fan, and I'm a mark, and it's. You look at the overall prospect rankings, and he was the number 1 prospect for multiple seasons. You watch him on one day, and he'll hit a 450-foot home run. He'll set a StatCast record from running first to third. He'll leap over the fence and rob a home run. He's an amazing talent, but the problem is he's never learned. He runs into
walls, dude. He runs into walls.
He's never learned you can't run through a wall. Like, stop. You're not Wonder Woman or Superman. Just stop. If he could pull back his defense 10%, he'd still be better than 95% of the outfielders, and he'd probably stay in the lineup.
So I'm hoping that it's kind of like, a maturity thing in a way, because, he's got kids now and stuff. And, really in my mind, this is what I picture. I picture him just running into the wall without stopping at all, like pushing the brakes at all. So it's kind of like the new puppy, I'm sure, because, Ray just got a new puppy. Probably like if you have hardwood floor, the dog will not stop in time. And, so I'm hoping that these guys like Buxton, he does have such great fantasy appeal because he can steal bases and hit for power. Lenny the other day was saying, we were talking about what are you targeting in the first round? Are you targeting skill sets, power and speed? Hopefully you want all of the categories, the more the better in the first round. You drafted 2 out of 4 of your hitters in your first 2 picks were power or your first 2 rounds, power and speed. Bryce Harper, you said you have a love-hate relationship with. I don't think that even needs explaining. Right?
Right? Yeah.
But you chose to go with Bryce Harper again. Philly, he's their man for like the next. He's the face of the club. But he has been we always say disappointing, but is he really disappointing ever?
Yeah. I've always run into the expectations game. And, when you're compared to Mike Trout for years, and Mike Trout is one of the 10 greatest players of all time, potentially, and your player 58, it looks like you suck. Like Bryce Harper has not sucked. It's just that the expectations were so high. And it wasn't just him. It was, again, the comparison to Trout. The problem with Harper is a couple. One thing, there is the health issue. He's had some injuries, but he's also seen his batting average go all over the place. Like he's almost as likely to, like I wrote in the article, he could hit 300, he could hit 260. It's just, there's more volatility with him.
Well, plus remember when they walked him all the time, that really pisses him off. You could tell that really just pisses him off so bad. Bryce Harper just wants to play, and like he has never, his work ethic is like above and beyond anybody, because he's always trying to be the best that he can. What do you think is the ceiling for Bryce Harper like?
Well, we saw him a couple years ago. He looked like Barry Bonds that one year, right? 330 with the 40 home runs and the whole thing. And I don't think anyone is drafting him at this point thinking that could happen, but it did happen, right? And so yeah, I could see him hitting 300. I could see him hitting 45 home runs. There certainly is the potential there for him in Philadelphia in a pretty good lineup and a good place to hit. There certainly is a potential for him to be an MVP candidate, flat out. And we've seen him also have shown the ability to steal bases. So if he's hitting 295 and he's hitting 40 home runs and he's stealing 15 bases, it's going to be a win.
So the thing about stolen bases that we know, it never gets, they don't usually start getting more stolen bases. So it just typically starts to go down. But it feels like he's much older and experienced than he is. He's actually only 27 years old still. Yeah. So it is the anomaly. The 319 average is the anomaly out of these numbers. It really stands out like a sore thumb. Right. But you can still imagine the entire league batting average is like 235 or something, right? It's horrible. So 268 is nothing bad. And so he very rarely ever gets caught stealing bases. So, the more he tries to steal, the more he can. He's successful is what I'm trying to say. We know his power is too legit, right? What about, let's talk about Vlad real quick. I know I didn't put him on the list, but this is who pops into my head. When we talk about Vlad and how hard he hits the ball, and we see how much does it matter to you that Vlad is going into spring training after having lost a bunch of weight and looks really like he's taking his physical shape seriously?
Yeah, like I've talked about this a good deal already. It's like I'm glad that he finally realizes that, his body's kind of important as an athlete. Like, it takes people a while to figure this out sometimes. And so he's clearly taking it serious, which is great. He got offended when they said you're no longer good enough at third base. So he's trying to change. So his mindset is right. And you're right. He hits the ball extremely hard. His, exit velocity, his hard hit rates, they're elite. The problem I have with Guerrero is that for 2 years now, he's been a league average player.
Is he ever going to hit it into the air?
That is the thing.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a player that wasn't able to ever get his launch angle with a little bit of work? Can everybody get their launch angle right? Or are some people just destined not to get a good launch angle?
Well, you run into an issue here because he's 21 years old and he could make the Hall of Fame. And this is the same thing you always see with kids. Like their mechanics are wrong, their arms in the wrong place, their hand position, but they're hitting home runs, whatever. Teams are reluctant to mess with the mechanics of players that are very good. So you have Vlad Guerrero, who, again, I said, been league average, but he's 21 years old, so being league average is pretty damn good. Do you change what works for him for the greater good? And if you do make those changes, what's the performance like in the short run? He needs to lift the ball, as you said. I'm just working on an article about him, actually, that's going to be at Fantasy Guru. His launch angle is half the league average. Okay, it's half. I know. It's 6.5%. He doesn't lift the ball in the air.
So is he, I guess you're saying that it depends on the age that you start them with trying to work on their launch angle, or they have to change their entire batting stance to get a better launch angle? Like how much change has to happen for somebody to be able to,
change their swing. It's a great question.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Is it still just as good in real baseball that he's hitting the ball in play, and he's hitting it so hard that nobody is going to be able to even come close to fielding it? So, is it that bad of a thing that he can't hit the ball out of the park.
Yeah, you can't teach a guy to hit the ball 110 miles an hour, right? That's you do or you don't. So he has an inherent advantage that so many others don't have.
Right.
His launch angle, his ground ball rate, and his home run to fly ball ratio. There is no one in baseball in the last full season of 2019 that had those three numbers of his and hit 30 home runs. So unless he changes his launch angle, it's very doubtful that he hits 30 home runs. Now, he might hit 26, 27, okay. But it's going to be hard for him to be that power hitter that I think kind of is necessitated by his draft position. He's obviously going to be capable of making the changes if he'd like to, if that's something they want to work on. There is risk, again, of asking a guy to change things because, like you said, he lost 30, 40 pounds too. So his body's different, the responses is different, his balance is different. Like, I don't know how many changes you really want to enact with a guy at such a young age. He's already changed his body situation. Do we also want to change the swing situation? I think that'd be pretty tough to do in a 5-month period of time.
See, that's why I'm not willing to draft him at round 4. I mean, I do like what he did for sure. I love the work ethic that he showed, that he now understands that you don't even have to work at being in shape when you're young, enjoy it while it lasts. So he,
Right.
But round 4 to me is a little bit, it's really hard for me to think that I would rather have him than Michael Conforto, who got drafted a round later fully on the same team. But,
Oh, yeah. And, I think that the article that I'm working on is like comparing Vlad to Paul Goldschmidt. And it's like, look, I get it, but I'll wait 4 rounds and take Paul Goldschmidt. Like, I don't, I agree with you that the cost of Guerrero is as if he is that guy. He's not that guy. We think he can be that guy. We all believe he can be that guy. He's not that guy. There's no real discount being built into him right now, and I agree with you. I would never draft him in the 4th round.
We're drafting him for his name and his potential, and I think it's really important to decipher between the two, or at least ask yourself why you're drafting. Are you drafting him for what they could be? We know that he will not hit, and I don't even know. I'll give him 20, not 25 homers if he can't get his launch angle above 8% or 7%. So I say he'll keep hitting it hard, but he will never, ever achieve what you're drafting from him in round 4. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that. Starling Marte, I love. People don't like him. He must have done something in St. Louis to piss off his coworkers.
Yeah,
Did he do something?
I mean, to me, and I've always been a Starling Marte fan, it's like, I know that maybe he never quite reached the heights that some people had for him, but when you're going 2020, when you're going 15-30, when you're batting 285 and scoring 85 runs, I mean, that's who he has been. He's going to play every day for the Marlins. I haven't seen any great skills slippage the last couple of years from him as he's into his 30s now. I was very comfortable making that pick, especially because when you see the rounds start to move on, you see people starting to chase steals, and they start taking the Colton Wongs of the world that'll steal the same number of bases but hits 4 home runs. So, yeah, I love taking Starling Marte there.
Do you like your draft overall, dude? I know I'm keeping you too long, but
okay.
Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, I do.
Hoskins? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. It's your show.
You hear what I was saying? I just keep repeating Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, I really like Rhys Hoskins. Provided the elbow's okay, and the early reports are all he's been hitting for 2 months and the whole thing. He didn't have Tommy John. He had primary repair, all that. I think that he is an excellent. He's a great bounce back if there needs to be. I mean, if you look at his numbers last year, they were the same as always. So I think people just with Hoskins expected him to hit 45 home runs and bat 300 after that rookie season, and that's just not who he is. Yeah, he's going to hit 270. He's going to hit 35 home runs and drive 90 in, and I got him at a cheap rate last night.
I think that in your draft diary, which again, I love the draft diary idea. I don't know if I could possibly pull it off though, because I just feel like there's usually not enough time in between when I'm not full. I don't know. It's hard.
Well, I was just listening to Lenny talk last night while I was doing it, so it went well.
Oh, good. Well, he's good for that. You got Nick Madrigal right after Rhys Hoskins. You talked about like, I'll take a little bit here I'll get my power here, and then I'll get from Madrigal. What are you going to get from Madrigal?
I look at the White Sox lineup as everyone else does, and it's tremendous, right?
Yeah.
And I think the way they're currently constructed, they're most likely to go with Adam Eaton batting second, I think. Now, ultimately, Nick Madrigal is the perfect number 2 hitter, like the perfect. He could hit leadoff, but the perfect number 2 hitter, move the ball around, never strikes out, produces base hits, got some speed. I think he starts out in the bottom, hitting 8th or 9th. I think at some point he moves up to 1st or 2nd in the order. I think he can, as soon as this year, hit 300. I think he's got the ability to steal 20 bases as soon as this year. And I think that, and that's what I talked about in the article, trying to do combinations because, you draft Madrigal and he hits 7 home runs. Well, someone else's second baseman's hitting 17 home runs or 23 home runs.
Right.
So I felt like I had to get power in other places so that when I took the power from Hoskins and I took the batting average from Madrigal and the speed from him and I put them together, now I got 2 guys hitting 280 with 20 home runs and 14 steals, which to me looks like a great duo, even though each individual player's got strengths and weaknesses.
There's 2 guys on the White Sox. They're the same type of guy. The Andrew Vaughn and Nick Madrigal. They're both going to be able to get on base, and they have great hit tools with them. But for fantasy purposes, don't be thinking that you're going to, you're actually getting a guy that's just probably going to be kind of boring for you. But hopefully, if they play every day, they'll just keep your batting average normal. They'll keep getting, and being in that lineup, you don't really need to be flashy in the stolen bases because you really will get hit around if you get on base, right? So I do like that. He evens it out some. That's about it. I was going to talk to you about projection systems and how they you do a Raised Rundown podcast. That's on Fantasy Guru site too. Those are free actually, so I do like to enjoy listening to those. But you talked about projection systems and Ron Chandler was talking a lot about this in the Baseball Forecaster. We talk about it every year. Is it even possible for these projection systems to get more accurate than they are at this point? Because there's so much human element. It's 70% max.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think the average fan realizes that, a great system is 70%, which is 2/3 basically. I think this year in particular, because of what last year meant or didn't mean, as you noted earlier tonight, it's very difficult to feel good about projections, in my opinion, generally. In 2021, I think it's even more of a mess. I don't know how much more we can do because there always is the human element, it's a balancing act. A lot of people think that, I always look at football and it's like, well, this quarterback's going to throw 30 touchdown passes this year. And then we add up all the receivers and somehow there's 36 touchdown catches. It's like, wait, no, that doesn't work. If the quarterback only throws 30, you can't have 36. And it's the same thing in baseball, that one of the biggest issues we have to deal with, and your projection model could be fantastic. You could be totally right, on the batting average and the home run pace and all that, but you can't predict the injury. You just can't. And when one player goes down, another player goes up. It's all a give and take, and it's just very difficult.
Well, you really have to look at it. If it doesn't work out, you have to question, why did it not work out? Was it because of my preparation or my did I have the wrong goals when I was trying to do my strategy was off? If your strategy is sound, and you can't really say, there's too much human element, but football is a nightmare with you. You know what? If you draft a team in football and you have a couple guys get injured, you're just done. Baseball, it's not like that. You get to actually make, you have lots of time to work around injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's the bigger lineups, bigger rosters. There's more, to me, again, it's more fun. I mean, because I enjoy that challenge more. For football, it's more point and shoot kind of thing. Whereas baseball, you have to understand the player. In football, the quarterback goes down, the next quarterback's still throwing the ball 35 times. Like, they're still doing that. In baseball, one guy goes down, he might be a power guy. The guy that replaces him might be a speed guy. One guy might hit second, the other guy might hit seventh. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the challenge, though some people do think it's a lot of work.
Okay, so one more thing. I wanted to talk to you about Greg Holland, right? I didn't even have to ask you what was your least favorite pick in the draft. At least from the diary's point of view, it was quite clearly what you did not like about the fact that you had to take a chance on this guy. I mean, it was the right time. You had Kenley Jansen as a closer already. But here's the thing. There's something good about Greg Holland because he gets paid a lot of money and he has been working hard in the offseason. What do you think? Obviously, you drafted him and you hated it, but do you look back and say, I still hate it, or?
Well, I have a love-hate relationship with the save. I want to get rid of the save. I don't like the save, but we have the save. That's what we're playing in this league.
Yeah, and wins too.
Yeah, so it's just how it is. So, okay, so do I like Greg Holland? No. Do I trust Greg Holland? No. Can I see Greg Holland having a good first half and getting traded and becoming a setup man? Yes, that obviously impacts the overall outlook for saves column. But the fact is, he's the guy with the Royals. He's the guy.
Yes.
And, if he gets me 18 saves at that point, it's a win. Can he do that? Absolutely. I just, I have questions about where he's been. I have questions about will he get traded? And the ratios could be a little messy, so you
it was
deal
round
with that.
20 though, by the way. It was round 20 that you did this. So there's just so many questions in the closer. Well, okay, let's say Puig. I love Puig. I'm glad that you were able to get Puig in round 26.
Is something going on that I don't know about? Like, why is no one signing him?
He doesn't have a job.
Like, what? Why?
Well, Rachel Luba, she is supposed to be getting him a job this year. That's her job. She's supposed to be, and I think she will. And that's why I feel like I do think she will get Puig signed. I don't know what the problem is with Puig. He is not as bad as people feel like nobody can get along with Puig.
I think a lot of his teammates have liked him.
I
right?
do too.
I don't mean I do, but I think all I know is at that point of the draft, when you're talking about taking guys in the minor leagues or backup players, I'm looking at Puig and it's like, look, his last 3 seasons that he's played, he's gone 2015. So, he's been who we want Byron Buxton to be. That's who he's been. And I took the chance in round 26.
So really, it has to be it's not his skill set that I think he's has a great arm, really strong arm in the outfield. He does steal bases. He does hit home runs. He's flamboyant. He's exciting to watch. I think Puig is he gets such a bad, he has a bad rap for that, because that is exactly why. I will say this though, Puig is going to vary a lot in drafts. You're going to see drafts where he's going to be drafted in like the 15th round.
If he signs and he's going to get a starting role immediately, he gets there. Yeah, absolutely. If not higher.
The fact that you got him in round 26, okay, a 14-team league, that's a steal for sure. But you got to watch out. Don't draft him too early. Somebody in your league I could see this happening a lot, like Byron Buxton, just randomly going round 8.
Well, let's hope not until he signs. But once he signs, reassess. Yep.
I'm going to let you go, Ray. Thank you so much for coming on with me and talking about last night's draft. I hope that I helped people out and didn't just I hope that we helped people out together.
Yeah, of course.
Sure thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. So over at Fantasy Guru, I'll just say this before you go. Did I explain the draft guide good?
Yeah, and it's always tough. You don't know what to call it. 'Cause it's not, like you said, it's not really a draft guide. It's a full season product. But then you have people who ask, well, where's the draft guide? So the bottom line is, if you subscribe now, you get the coverage from now through the end of the season. So you get the whole thing for the $39.99. We got you covered, all the rankings and all that in the preseason, as well as all the articles in season.
I absolutely think it's a great steal. $39.99, and you do get season-long action. It doesn't just go away after baseball starts, which is good. Super exciting. Are you going to go to some games? I know that you. I won't even try to talk to you about the Dodgers, because you're a Giants fan,
right?
And it's. I don't know. They probably just annoy the crap out of you, right? The Dodgers.
Yeah, well, they won 3 World Series, so I'll give them a pass. I grew up in the Bay Area. My dad actually saw the first Giants game at Seal Stadium, the first Giants game at Candlestick Park, the last game at Candlestick, the first game at the new park, et cetera, et cetera. So just happy they won a couple World Series.
San Francisco ballpark getting more hitter friendly, or it's. Are you guys making changes to where it's changing the hitter pitcher ratio of how good it is to pitch there?
It's hard to tell because the sample size was so small last year. I think some of it had to do with the changes made, the bullpens being moved to the outfield. They closed up the fence a little bit in right. The weather was warm because we didn't have early in the season. So it's too early for me to say that it's an offensive environment. I think it's way too early to say that, but it did play much more evenly last year than we were expecting.
But the dimensions have changed in this ballpark, right?
It's like 10 feet or something. It's not, they didn't pull, no. For the majority of the outfield, no. It's still 309 down the line, which everyone thought would lead to a gazillion home runs in right field. Doesn't. It's still a fair place at worst. I think a lot of it was white noise last year, to be honest. We'll see if I'm right or not when the season's over.
For sure. I think San Francisco, God, I forgot what I was just going to say. Oh, they're pitching. I love Kevin Gausman. I've been liking him. Right now, I think he's a little bit overpriced. I mean, he went from nobody wanting to draft him last year to all of a sudden now he's going really rather early in drafts. I do like what San Francisco is doing with their pitching, though. They're investing in arms that they think, and they're working with guys that they see talent in. What do you think of that? How is the
Well, they signed Scott Kazmir today, so they're of course going to
what?
win this year. I mean, that's
Wait,
yeah, they
that's
did.
true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Scott Kazmir, dude?
They're giving everyone a chance, and it's a new world, you know.
I haven't even seen him since.
It's been years since he's pitched in the big leagues. Yeah, it's been years.
Okay, well, I love a comeback story too,
Yeah.
right? He's finally
Yeah.
going to be healthy, and that. Okay, good.
We'll
So,
try.
all right, I'll let you go. We'll see each other. We're not going to see each other for a while, but
Yeah.
we're gonna next time we do, we'll have beers at the tavern up the road from your house.
That'll work. Sounds great.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So that is Ray Flowers, and what a fun time with him. Great person, and fun guy. Very smart with baseball. One of the smartest people that I know. So look at George is here. Nice to see you, George. We have a Captain 15. I don't recognize you, but nice to meet you. I should check StreamYard because there's comments over here. Okay, you guys, nice to see you. So the other day I had Brian Ambos, the fan addict, on, and I usually do Saturday baseball. I did all this work to get ready for fantasy or Saturday baseball, and I never got to talk about all the notes that I did. Spring preview on just a few teams. I have like 6 teams that I wanted to talk about going into spring training. This was supposed to happen on Saturday, so we're a little bit behind the schedule, but today is the first day that the full teams are at spring training, so it's still just as valid as it was back then. Let me check in the chat room and say hi. George, nice to see you. George is gone. They probably think that I'm done. Anyway, Lenny is definitely always going to be here, and we'll just keep going. Spring training. So the Washington Nationals might be better than we thought that they were going to be. They actually were tied for last place in the National League East last year with the Mets. They had one of the worst records in baseball. They obviously had trouble with their starting pitching, but they added Josh Bell. They added Kyle Schwarber. They solidified the lineup some. Josh Bell, I just think that maybe they're a little under the radar better than we think that they are. I do think that Strasberg needs to be paid attention to in spring training because he did have a career season in 2019 and he gets hurt again last year. So you just, like me and Ray were talking about, you do not know about injury. And with a guy like Strasberg, I remember in Arizona when Lenny and I when he first came to Arizona Fall League, and he had security around him. I mean, they treated him like he was gonna break or something if he fell down on the ground, and he did break because of that. I think that he was babied way too much, that he never worked. Like, he got hurt because he was treated like a little baby. I think that they talk about, we don't want them to end up in Tommy John surgery, so we try to be easy on their innings as they grow and as they get into the majors and all this. We're always worried about the innings limit, and I say that is not helping pitchers stay healthy. I don't think. I mean, that's my opinion, but Strasburg has been pretty much an injury question mark for ever since he came to the big leagues, right? 2019, he had a great season. They say that he is going to be healthy. So he had surgery. I think he had carpal tunnel or something in his carpal tunnel. Lenny thinks he has carpal tunnel right now too. Anyway, so we got that going with Strasburg. I think that he definitely should not be off the radar because let me see where he went here in this draft last night. Strasburg round 4. Okay, so we're dealing with round 4. the last pick in round 4 of a 14-team, league. Strasberg, then Sonny Gray got drafted right after him, then Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Lance Lynn, then Ray got Lance Lynn, but he is going. I feel good about drafting Strasberg. I like Strasberg. Okay, what would you give up for Max Scherzer? Lenny wants to trade Max Scherzer in our dynasty league, and he wants 2 starting pitchers, a closer, and a third baseman for Max Scherzer. That's kind of expensive, right? I just don't think. I don't know. All right, back to the spring. So look at this. They have Steven Strasberg, Corbin. Corbin, I like too. Good deal on Corbin. Even Ray was saying in that the draft diary is too much. It was really cool because you can see that too. That's one of the free articles at Fantasy Guru. It's very interesting how he talks about the different rounds and how it's like at one point he says it's just crazy. The draft has completely just gone off the rails for sure. This was like round 10. You can then by him doing this, you see the pivotal point in the draft where you could say, it could have went this way or it could have went a completely different way. So there's definitely those times in the draft. I think in round 4 when he drafted Starling Marte instead of grab a pitcher. In round 4, I know I'm going off topic, going back to Ray, but when he had a choice between starting pitching and another hitter, which he already had Yelich, Harper, and Bregman, he then added Starling Marte instead of getting a pitcher. And so I will tell you who was drafted in between that pick, Starling Marte, and his next pick, which was Lance Lynn that he did end up getting. So it goes this way. So we will say Blake Snell was drafted after that. Glasnow. So he could have had Glasnow, Blake Snell, Steven Strasberg, Liam Hendricks, or Brandon Woodruff. That one pick of Starling Marte is a great pick, but then you look at all of these pitchers that went in between. And he loves Brandon Woodruff, that's for sure. So he would have been able to get him. He would have been able to get Strasburg, Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, and then after that, you stay like, okay, there is quite a quick drop-off when it comes to pitching, starting pitching right there. Anyways, back to the spring previews that we're talking about right now, which is the Washington Nationals. I told you that they added Kyle Schwarber. The question of the day, the other day, who would hit more home runs, Kyle Schwarber, Luke Voigt, or Jock Peterson? That was the question. Lenny and I both said Kyle Schwarber. Last year he hit 188, so that's just absolutely horrible, okay? But he was still hitting the ball hard. That's really what you're looking for out of him, right? Because he is in the top 5% for hard hit, exit velocity, whatever it is. He hits the ball really hard. They added a catcher. They added Brad Hand. They added John Lester. John Lester I don't know. He's, to me, the same pitcher as Jake Arrieta, just very risky to put on your fantasy team. But that's the thing. I don't think you have to pay much for either one. Max Scherzer did well last year. So he's had 5 seasons with an ERA under 3 until last season. There was 5 seasons with the Nationals that he pitched with an ERA under 3. Last year he had an ERA of 3.74. Okay. But it's still under 4. First of all, I don't know if it shows his age, like just immediately just now Max Scherzer's just showing his age. Maybe he has a lot of innings on his arm, but I don't know. He's already been slowed because a sprained left ankle. That's what I'm seeing. So he was already got a sprain. Max Scherzer, I am not trading for him. That's a bad idea. Steven Strasberg last year did have carpal tunnel surgery, and he showed a significant velocity drop, but I really think that it had something to do with that injury, and I'm going to be able to imagine that his velocity will be back up to what it normally is. I mean, and Strasberg should be watched at spring. I've already said it. Now we have Atlanta. Atlanta won the last 3 National League East titles, okay? They weren't favored in any of these to win the National League East, but they have done that. They just can't win a World Series because they never make it past like the first round of the playoffs. And, you know, that's the problem. But they did add, okay, we're getting Mike Soroka back. We got that going. Atlanta always has good pitching. You know that. They have Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, Drew Smiley. That's always a question mark. But Charlie Morton was a disappointment for me last year. And I think like people that did have him on their team last year are going to be a little bit skittish. So I'm not crazy. Freddie Freeman, Marcell Ozuna, which I think is great, led the National League in home runs and RBIs last year. And that's not really that surprising, but he doesn't have good defense. That doesn't even matter to you in fantasy baseball. Okay. So don't even worry about that. All right. They lost Adam Duvall. Okay, big deal. They lost Mark Malonson. I found a great story about Mark Malonson. He's actually did sign a contract. I can't remember what team it is right at the moment. I was surprised. Maybe it's San Diego. Maybe San Diego. But here's my story. I was looking up information on Mark Malonson, and I found a great article about him. And he started a company in Atlanta because he was getting a miniature golf putt green, you know, in his backyard. He was having one of those built, and he was like saying to himself, these guys are doing such a horrible job. Like, he doesn't know anything about building putting greens or whatever, but he decided that him and his brother-in-law, which is really cool, they got together and they started a business. So then they started installing the putt greens in people's backyards and doing like custom, just different custom yard things. And the guy that's in charge of taking care of the grass at the ballpark in Atlanta, he helps them out with finding the right types of grass. And like, anyway, he really loved Atlanta. And Lenny and I talked about the fact that if he did sign, they would love him there because he is a fan favorite and he has a business there. Their other brother now is involved too doing it. So they're just having a really good time building like playgrounds in people's backyards and stuff. I just think it was a great story. So I know he moved now. I think he moved to San Diego. I'm not positive. It doesn't really, I should check though, because this is supposed to be informative, right? And I can't. Yes, he's pitching in San Diego. So this is good. My instinct is still working. So Mark Malonson, okay, he's 35 years old. He is not what he used to be, but he still is going to get the saves. Let's look at the depth chart. The saves will be given to Mark Malonson. Okay, also listed at RotoWire on the depth chart right next to Mark Malonson is Drew Pomeranz. Drew Pomeranz is not a closer. Okay, he is an effector. He's a setup guy, or I mean, this is somebody that just didn't cut it as a starting pitcher, and he deserves to be in the middle, the setup relief role, because then he can pitch more than one inning because he's a failed starter. So, and he was much better in the bullpen. Okay, anyway, let's not talk about Padres yet because they're on my list, but they're not coming up yet. That was Mark Malonson. They lost Darren O'Day. They lost Shane Green. Big deal. They still have Will Smith, who they're paying a decent amount of money to close out games, and he's probably going to I mean, here's the thing, though. Atlanta is not that great at naming a closer or being very consistent in getting saves. So on that or Tampa Bay is the same way. You just can't trust a closer from these teams because their manager is going to throw in whoever is having the great in the best mood that day or whatever, for whatever reason. It's just, you can't rely on I don't know. That's just my opinion. This next, so we have Achilles problems over here with Mike Soroka. I tore my Achilles tendon when I was trying to play softball after age 30, and I hit the ball, and it was an infield ground ball, and I turned and started running to first base as quick as I could, and I tore my Achilles tendon, and I wore a cast for 6 months. So it's 6 months you're in this cast. It's hard cast. When you take the cast off, your entire muscle is gone. Like there's no muscle in your leg, so you have to like do workouts, physical therapy, whatever, and train your leg again. And it will never go back. They will never be the same size again, no matter how hard you try. That your legs will not match, like your calf muscle will not match the other one. Okay, whatever. But he's had that Achilles surgery done, Sorocus. We're talking 7.5 months ago. So it's about 9 months, I would say, fully. I do know that he's been throwing off of a mound for a couple months now. So Mike Sorocus, another guy to watch in the spring. Let's see where he went in the draft. He is worth watching. I wonder, what round do you guys think he went? He could be very cheap. Mike Sorocus, round 10. 14-team league, round 10. Take a chance on Sorocus in round 10 for real, or before that even. Anyway, if obviously he has to look right, but when the Achilles isn't. I was gonna say that the Achilles it's obviously a necessary part of your body, but you need your elbow and your shoulder to be like the best shape for a pitcher. Achilles is probably really important too, I guess. Not as important as your elbow or your arm, your shoulder. I don't know. Well, just watch him in spring. That's what you got to do. But there's every reason to think that he should be fully healthy by the beginning of the season. At that point, it will have been more than 9 months. So he's on track. You got that going. Ian Anderson, 1.95 ERA in 6 regular season starts last year. He went 2-0. His ERA was under 1. Okay, in 4 postseason starts, he's going to enter 2021 as the candidate for Rookie of the Year. That's what they say. That's what they say. I don't care who he is or where he came from or what his name is or when he got. I don't even care if he was the best player, the generational player of the generation. I just don't believe it until I see it, because that is not enough stats for me to be drafting this guy. Let's see where he went. Okay, Anderson. Nick Anderson, no, he's a good one too, but we have Brian Anderson in round 17, Tim Anderson in round 4, Ian Anderson round 6. This pitcher is getting drafted before Nelly Cruz. He's getting drafted before Kyle Hendricks. Chris Paddock is going after him. That's crazy, dude. It's just crazy. There's lots of closers going after him, but Zach Wheeler went after him. Urquidy, I don't know. I just say to myself, there's just no reason why I would choose this pitcher heading into the season, because it's based off of he's still a rookie. He still qualifies for Rookie of the Year. And then here's our friend Jesus Luzardo in the same round going, okay? In the same round, Jesus Luzardo going right next to Ryu and Goldschmidt and Eugenio Suarez. I wonder what in the world we're basing this Luzardo love on, because he hasn't done anything. I mean, seriously, I don't get the logic in this. I just don't get the logic. He hasn't done anything. He's pitched 59 innings last year. That was his rookie season. He finally made it to the majors, 59 innings. He had a 4.12 ERA. It's not that exciting, but he was very impressive, okay, at the minor leagues. He was like the best lefty prospect going into 2019. And so those of you that had decided to believe in Luzardo, you drafted him and you were disappointed the first year, the second, because he only pitched 12 innings in 2019 in the major leagues. He had a 1.50 ERA for those 31 innings. So I guess I can understand somewhat going into last season. But this is the same story with Ian Anderson that you see here with Jesus Luzardo. We loved what he did heading into 2020. We thought he could do it, but he didn't. And then now it's going into the next season. He's only 23 years old, right? But we just give up too quickly on these pitchers but this is the year to stay away from a pitcher that is going into their sophomore slump year. Ian Anderson is not a good draft pick because it is too risky. I mean, yes, you have to take risk in fantasy, so you get to decide where you want to have your own risk. And I'm not trying to change that for you. I'm just saying, for me, I don't choose to pick shiny new toys really most of the time. But there's a couple rookies that I like that I'll try to get later in the draft if I can. I talked to Ray about his pick in Nick Madrigal, and Nick Madrigal he's very highly touted, and he's just a great all-around player. But for fantasy purposes, you have to be reasonable in your expectations about what you're going to get out of a guy like this. He does not hit for power. He hasn't stolen base. Well, he has stolen bases, so we'll give him that. But I don't think he's just not going to I don't think he's going to really do that much. But the power is not going to be there for sure. The batting average is going to be there. The on-base percentage is definitely going to be there because he has great contact. He has great discipline. Let me see it. I think he strikes out minimal. Look at his strikeout rate, okay, people? This strikeout rate is unbelievable. Even in the minor leagues, Nick Madrigal, his strikeout rate, I don't know if I've ever seen a strikeout rate this low. 3.7% strikeout rate in 2019 at AAA. In the majors, he had a 6.4% strikeout rate. No, I'm not talking, it's 6.4%. I don't think I've ever seen anybody with that little of a strikeout rate. Maybe I have. I don't know. It seems really low. So his launch angle, we have 15%. That's okay, but that's not the case. That is not what we're looking at. We are just paying attention to the fact that Nick Madrigal, he plays second base. He is going to, what you're going to get for sure is that he will have on-base percentage, batting average. He will score. So if he's not hitting at the bottom of the order, that's something to pay attention to with him. It will matter with this team, the White Sox, because their lineup behind him, if he's batting near the top of the order, is absolutely going to get him to come and score lots of runs. Okay, so that's what you're getting out of Nick Madrigal. But here's the thing about second base. I do not recommend drafting a second baseman or a shortstop. I know that there's some tempting options early in the draft, like Trey Turner is very tempting. Francisco Lindor is tempting. Even Javi Baez is tempting in a way. But when you get to the end of the draft and you're at the very last round and Starling Castro, Jonathan Scope, and these guys are still sitting there, how many play. I'm not going to say they're all great. Okay. There's obviously flaws with any player at that point. But like Ray said, he chose to draft Brendan Rodgers over Starling Castro or Jonathan Scope because he felt like those other two were boring, and he was already fine in the middle infield. He was fine. He had his second baseman and his middle infield. So how many of them do you need? But if you're going to get one with a little upside. So I'm just saying, Lindor and Trey Turner, they just really, I just am not even really looking at them because not that I don't like them, but there's so many shortstops and second basemen that are valuable players. Okay. Let me see. There's just so many at the end of the draft. They're floating around still. They're like, they're just floating everywhere. That's another thing with, I think, the depth of starting pitching. Obviously, it's not going to be great when you get to the bottom rounds, but there are pitchers like Ray got Spencer Howard in the last round 29, Spencer Howard. Let me see what other. Bumgarner went in round 26. Luis Severino is going really late. Justice Sheffield could be fine in Seattle. There's definitely, there's ceiling, and there's all kinds of like mediocre starting pitchers that aren't going to get a lot of innings, but that probably won't kill you. Dylan Cease is one that's going really late. I don't think he's going to stay going this late. Round 24 for Dylan Cease. They say he could be like Cy Young. That's what they say. But that's a very good compliment. Paxton, okay, that Ray got round 15. I didn't even get to ask him about Noah Syndergaard. I was too scared to ask Ray about Noah Syndergaard because he's a Giants fan, and he probably would take Noah Syndergaard's side over Bauer because, I don't know. I just didn't ask him because I was afraid. But he did draft Noah Syndergaard, who, as Lenny pointed out, when he has pitched, which turns out he hasn't missed as much time as I thought that he did. I do feel like he's always hurt, but when he did pitch, he pitched really good. I just, he's one of those pitchers. I don't know. I don't believe that he's going to be healthy. All right, let's go back to the chat room. Okay, nobody to talk to, Leonard, George, my friend Malpal, nobody's here. Look at you. Thank you for the compliment. Okay, that's it. It's been 1 hour and 10 minutes, so I'm good to go, and I don't have to stay on any longer. If you guys aren't here to talk with me, you should come to the chat room on Tuesday nights to listen to the show. Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com/live. That's the live chat room, and that's where we talk with each other and engage. So tonight's just a slow night on a Tuesday night, but thanks for hanging out, and we'll do some more spring previews coming up. Tomorrow is happy hour at 7 o'clock. Happy hour. That's fun. We have the video now that we embed into the chat room. So you get to watch video, listen to the guys with happy hour, do taco trivia time. And then what else? Of course, Lenny's daily podcast is on every day at 9 a.m. You should absolutely go over to vote for Lenny's daily podcast. He should win the baseball pods. They have a bracket, right? So Lenny's doing that now. I shared it on my Twitter page, which is at Roto Lady. And then of course, Lenny's is always easy to find. It's at Lenny Melnick at Twitter. Anyway, we want you to go and vote so that Lenny can win what he deserves to win, which is the best fantasy baseball podcast, because there's nobody that does a better podcast than Lenny. He does it every day of the week, but most people have to work, so they don't get to come. That's too bad, but he's still the best. So go vote for Lenny. And then we have, that's his every day, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. You should come to the chat room. It's baseball time for sure, and there's lots going on. And next time that we talk will be on baseball, Saturday baseball. And on that day, we will go over some spring team previews. We'll talk about what's going on in the spring, the most important players and their injuries and all of this. So we'll see you then, Saturday baseball. And that's it. Have a great day. Great evening.